Okay.
So thank you, everybody, and good morning. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning, and shows your commitment to learn about issues impacting children. So my name is Priscilla Borders. I'm the Advocacy and Outreach Coordinator for the Interfaith Children's Movement. The Interfaith Children's Movement is a grassroots interfaith movement that advocates on behalf of children. And a large part of ICM's work is advocating and highlighting and monitoring policies, services, or processes that impact the children here in Georgia. And as advocates, it's just as important to be informed on issues that impact children. And that is the reason for today's presentation on trauma and what we need to know to support children. So once again, before we begin, I remind you that this is recorded, and the recording will be available at a later date once we edit it and make sure that we can post it. And we will make sure that if you want access to this presentation, you can get a copy. So I would like to take this time to introduce today's presenter, Tiara Bracey. With over 10 years of experience working with risk youth, is a passionate child advocate on a mission to initiate change with how abused and neglected children are overlooked and under-supported in our educational system and other areas of life. As a way to heal after witnessing her stepsister's experience trauma in foster care, she founded the Agape Learning and Prevention Center. Through this center, Tiara Bracey has been representing children and teens with special needs since 2018, bringing hope, help, and happiness to children and families, and making neglected children feel like children again. So, Tiara, welcome, and thank you again for allowing to share this presentation.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And today I am the founder of Agape Life Prevention Center. We do work with abused and neglected children and just children dealing with overall traumas. Ever since COVID happened, our mission had to expand because a lot of our kids started losing parents, grandparents, like their primary caregiver. And so this now made them go in this care system or live with a relative they don't know that much, and then neglect happens because maybe they don't have the resources they need to even take care of the child. So it's just like a domino effect in this with working with abused and neglected children. I have been working with kids for over 10 years. Since I've been like little, I've loved children. And then, yes, my stepsisters were in foster care. My mom remarried, and so her husband had 2 kids, and they were in foster care, and it was horrible. And so those rules back then were very lax, but now they have tried to do better in the foster care system, I will say. And then something else that's not added in there is my mom, we used to walk in the hunger walk every year, and she called us Agape. So that's where Agape came from. I just took what my mom planted and just said Agape Life Prevention Center, and this is what we're going to do. So thank you for that. I'm getting ready to share my screen. So, is it playing? Okay, so can y'all see that? Thumbs up if you can see that. All right, great. I would like to get to know everybody that is here today. So please, you can take yourself off of mute, or you can drop your name in the chat, where you from, and one interesting thing about yourself. And I don't think I can see the chat. And you all can participate too.
Well, I'm Joy Bora, and I am here in Atlanta, part of the Interfaith Children's Movement volunteers. And one interesting thing about myself. Oh, this is wild and crazy and fun. So back 60 years ago, when I was a teenager, I was a ballerina. That's it.
I love that.
So I'm gonna go. I'm recapping. Priscilla Borders. I'm here in Atlanta, also with ICM. One interesting thing. I was actually part of my youth through, I guess, middle school to my early teens. I was raised in my mom's native land of Philippines.
Hmm,
Mhm.
Good
wow.
morning. My name is Judy Moore. I am actually in Washington, D.C. I was called into working with children, and that went from teaching them to now I'm working with youth in foster care. And I would like to understand a lot more about the traumas they experience and how it shows up in their lives as adolescents.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll go. My name is Tiara. I'm straight out of Atlanta. Okay. Um, one interesting thing about me is my favorite color is sea green, right? And I run a dance program at the YMCA. I'm the program director over there as well. So I love to dance. Dance is my life. I just like to dance for fun though. You know how some people make it a career, it really wouldn't be a career for me. I would just like to teach others and just because it's fun to do. So that's great. I love that. So today, we'll be the course overview is we'll be discussing trauma and the different areas of trauma. Our goal is to just guide you on how to deal with children dealing with trauma, and then upon completing this, you will receive a certification. The benefits of this is learning how to advocate for children, learning more about community needs, and learning more about the effects of trauma. Right now, we really need to learn. Advocate is such a strong word, and using your voice can go a long way. And then also knowing what your community needs, demographics, where you at is important as well. It just go back 20 minutes. Okay, so let me move this out the way. Today we'll be talking about what is trauma. Trauma in the educational system, trauma in the juvenile system, trauma in faith, and then how can we make a difference? So it just says, what does trauma look like for children? How trauma affects children? What is social and emotional learning skills? How does trauma affect a child education? How does trauma affect the juvenile justice system? And then how can we incorporate our faith in and help children dealing with their traumas, and like how can we make a difference? All right, so let's jump into this. What is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like accident, rape, or a natural disaster. Immediately after a child experiences trauma, they go through their own period of shock or denial. And they do that by kind of like just playing. Through play, they will display their traumas. Through distancing themselves, they will display their traumas. So they really won't use their voice. They'll do it in different ways. So they will definitely have unpredictable emotions and flashbacks, and then relationships with others would look funny as well. So if I was a child experiencing trauma, I might not talk to Ms. Borders because maybe I don't feel comfortable with her, but I might talk to Ms. Moore because she said something to me to make me feel comfortable. So children look for a lot of emotional support when they go through trauma. So what does trauma look like for children? Like I just said, younger children are more vulnerable to trauma, which they are. Infants and toddlers are the number one victims of trauma because they can't talk. So when things happen to them, it stays at home. They can't go to school and tell anybody my mom smacked me or whooped me or left me somewhere. They just deal with it, or I didn't eat. They just have to deal with that. And so that causes trauma at a early age, and it sticks with them, although we might think it doesn't. It does. It creates a memory in their mind that well, maybe I have to sneak, a toddler especially, maybe I have to sneak in the refrigerator to get something to eat, because they already do that anyways. I have a 2-year-old. My daughter always in my refrigerator, and she eats very well. But if I'm not eating already, then I'm going to sneak to do it, and then this might just be a pattern in my life. Now I'm still into get food. I'm still in that school, so it affects them as well, all the way to adulthood. So, how many children are affected by trauma? A traumatic event. More than 2/3 of children reported at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. That has most likely tripled, because this information is from 2019. The pandemic really kicked off in 2020. Bullying. In 2019, about 1 in 5 high school students reported being bullied on school property in the last year. It's not addressed very well in school. Child abuse and neglect. At least 1 in 7 children have experienced child abuse and are neglected in the past year. And this, like I said, this is probably triple by now. I work in the school system, and half the school, I'm not even gonna say half the school, 80% of the school has experienced neglect, at least during this pandemic. The impacts of trauma, and this goes for all ages. Mental health. So mental health is depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and suicidal thoughts. Suicide is at an all-time high right now for our children. They don't know how to cope. They don't know where to go. So they're just, committing suicide. Behavior, social withdrawal, aggression, and illegal activities. Illegal activities can start in kindergarten, but it's not spotlighted until they get into their teenage years. Brain development. This could be like autism or ADHD, and really those disabilities are a brain development thing. But if you were able to sit down with these kids that are autistic or ADHD, they're just missing something at home, and then you can reverse it. Cognition. It definitely, I would put this more with education, because the trauma does affect education, but like I said, that's something that can be reversed, but it still is an effect. Your physical health, a lot of our kids can get sleeping disorders, or they don't sleep, or they sleep too much because they don't sleep at home. So when they come to school, they sleep. Emotions, yes, is at an all-time high, and relationship skills. All of these are effects of trauma. So there are 2 types of trauma: acute trauma and complex. So, acute would be considered something little, like a car accident, a natural disaster, abuse, assault, or theft. I don't think any trauma is acute, but this would be small, because complex would be something that keeps happening. So basically, if I was being sexually abused, it's been happening to me for a year, 2 months, 3 months, 3 years, it just keeps going on and on. But versus an acute, it might just happen once. So sexual abuse, physical abuse, a serious accident, loss of loved ones, domestic violence, health threats, and neglect. Neglect is the number one child abuse. It's at an all-time high. Sexual abuse and physical abuse is actually low, but domestic violence and neglect is the number one things that children face. And neglect can be as simple as not having shoes, not having clothes, not having a home, not having food. And that could be intentional or unintentional. And most of the time it's unintentional, but still it's a factor of abuse. So before we go on our break, do anybody have any questions, concerns that you would like to ask or learn more about trauma?
I suggest we not have a 5-minute break and keep
Okay.
going,
Yes. We
since
could
it's
definitely.
only 5 of us.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that feedback. So, trauma and educational system, which is my passion. Okay. This is really what I'm passionate about. As the bio said, a lot, teachers are number one reporters when it comes to abuse and neglect. They are the number one reporters. But school systems doesn't have enough resources for them to tackle it. It's just like, okay, they're going to school, but what do we have for the children and families? And some schools do a great job at this, but majority of them don't. So this is where my passion comes in at. So for some students, school is just not a place of learning and growth, but also a refuge from abuse. Kids come to school to be free, and they like to learn, and they like to be loved on by their teachers, and they like to get the help, because when they go home, they know that it might be no lights at home, it might be no home, it's no food at home, you know, it's a lot of things that plays into it. So they like coming to school, and we need more resources. And if you want to just take a moment to read the stats of, children coming to school for certain things, you could just take a moment to read it. Yeah. Okay. How does trauma affect a child's education? Symptoms resulting from trauma can directly impact a child's ability to learn. Students might be distracted. That's it. They're distracted. They come to school, they haven't ate, they haven't slept well. And this is on the low level right here. We're not even factoring in sexual abuse or physical abuse. They're just coming to school to get away, but they're distracted. They might come to class and need to go to sleep, right? They might need a snack, but what if the teacher doesn't have a snack? What if the counselor is out? What if the principal don't understand because this child has literally shut down to protect themselves, So it is most definitely it most definitely affects their education. These are the things that you would look out for children that are dealing with trauma. Oh, wait a second. They will have behavior issues, lack of positive social and emotional skills, lack of focus, low academic performance, and low attendance in school. These are the top 5 things. Behavioral issues would be just always trying to fight, overly defending their things, being the bully, because sometimes when you don't have things, you make fun of people for the things that they do have because you don't have it. Lack of positive social and emotional skills. So basically, these group of children or youth might not communicate well, or might be detached from their emotions, or be over emotional. Anything can set them off. Lack of focus. We just spoke about that. Coming to class and going to sleep. Coming to class and not paying attention. They just don't want to be there. Low academic performances. So any children that's failing, or just on a reading level, or on a low reading level, or a low math level. And then low attendance. They don't come to school like that. They don't have a way to school. Georgia has this law where if you are homeless, you can go to school where you're homeless at. or they will provide transportation for you to stay at that school so your child does not have to keep moving around because you don't have anywhere to stay, or you might stay in a hotel or stay with a friend, and they will provide that transportation for you to let them stay at that school, or they can go to the school in that area. But yes. So I don't know if you ever heard of Vox Teens, but Vox Teens is a magazine here in Atlanta, and a lot of them write about their everyday life in school, at home, dealing with the pandemic, depression. I would strongly advise everybody to pick it up because these are the people that we need to help us, make our mission stronger and make our voices stronger when they speak. So Miss Selma Toast wrote an article about toxic positivity and its subconscious damage, and it's a great article. The article is about her losing her father, and I tried to upload it, but it didn't look good, so we could read it. But I can give you an overview. She lost her father, and she went to her teacher and she said, "I'm hurt. I lost my dad. I don't have anyone," because her mom was already passed away as well. And her teacher told her, like, her teacher said, "It's okay. It could be worse." And she was just like, "What?" She did not like that at all. So then, she was like, okay, she tried to take that in, like, okay, it could be worse. But then time would go on and she was still missing her father. And she told another teacher, like, "I miss my dad." And the other teacher said, "It's okay, it could be worse." So she quoted, "Americans are pushing a positive narrative on people facing trauma. When something bad's happened, the first thing people want to tell you it is to be grateful for what you have and not focus on a negative. This not only reinforces that idea that we must be happy all the time, but also encourages the use of toxic positivity." Covering things up. Basically what she's saying here is we need to address the issue and not cover it up with saying, be grateful for what you have, because that's not it. When you miss someone or when you lose anyone that is close to you, it's very hard to get over. When you don't have a home, that is very hard for you to cope with, but you would say, well, be grateful anyways. And that is not how, people, the education system should respond, but that often does happen. And the reason why that happens is because teachers, counselors do not have the time to address certain issues. I know counselors now here in Georgia they're academic counselors now. They don't do counseling sessions. And if they do, they can only do 3 for that child and then outsource that child to another counseling service. So that's just another domino effect of it's not going to happen for that child because a lot of facilities are booked. They're not even taking appointments, for one. For 2, how is this child gonna get to counseling? For 3, do I even have the device to do a virtual counseling session? So it's just a domino effect for us not addressing the traumas that our children are facing. So this is something negative, but I did interview an assistant principal, and she is a great assistant principal. She's been in the education system for 22 years with some feedback on how she addresses the trauma and how she tries to help her teachers, her staff address it as well. Okay. Okay, how you doing? Can y'all hear the sound? Okay, great. And I am with Miss Kimberly Clark today, and I am Tiara Bracey, the founder of Agape Life Prevention Center. And today we'll be interviewing Ms. Clark on how important is social and emotional learning within the school system and just getting the educator point of view. Ms. Clark, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and you can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kimberly Clark. I am an assistant principal in the Metro Atlanta area. I have been in education for about 21 years.
Can everybody hear it? I think the sound went out. Tiara, the sound went out.
I know you've seen a lot and
Educator,
okay,
a
can y'all hear it
instructional
now?
coach, a support specialist in South Florida, and now I'm an assistant principal in an elementary school in Metro Atlanta.
That is wonderful. 22 years in the game. I know you've seen a lot, and now you're assistant principal. That is an amazing accomplishment. And so I'm just proud of you. And I'm about to start asking you some questions so you can be honest and open. And so you answered my first question, and that was, how long have you been in education? And you said 21 years, and you're going on your 22nd year. And like I said, that's amazing. When I think about education, I'm like, can I be an educator that long? You know, because educators go through so much. And like when I was in school, it's definitely not the same as now. I graduated in 2011. And so that was the last year of the graduation test. A lot of stuff ended that year. And I'm like, dang, when did it end that? when my last year. So my next question is, how do you think trauma affects a child or a student's learning?
It definitely affects the students' learning. And I always try to make sure our teachers understand that before you teach a child, you have to reach them. So it's very important for us as educators to understand the backgrounds of our students. So we know where we can start with them.
Okay, and that was how long?
Sure, our teachers understand that before you teach a child, you have to reach them. So it's very important for us as educators to understand the backgrounds of our students. So we know where we can start with them. I've always worked at Title I schools, and those schools are a lot of the time marginalized and impoverished. They are in marginalized and impoverished areas. So with that comes a lot of, a lot of emotions from parents as well as the students. They have to deal with a lot. So I've had many instances in working in Atlanta where we've had children, teachers, counselors, administrators have had to be parents, they've had to be nurses, they've had to be counselors, you name it. Pretty much you have to be the jack of all trades in education, because a child can't be educated without understanding them and understanding the situations that they're in, and understanding that last night they may not have had, dinner, or they may have not had breakfast this morning, or they may have experienced a traumatic incident at their homes before they came to school. So it plays a lot into educating a student. You can't educate them without understanding them first.
And that's great. You said two things that I like: teach and reach. So I'm gonna pause it here because I want to touch on what you said about just teachers having to be everything when when a child comes to school. Is like, I am the parent, I am the counselor, so that's a lot of work for a teacher to do. And I just wanted to pause and say that so that we can understand when we're thinking about how can we help, this is a way for us to help, because we don't want to when we're trying to solve a problem and advocate, we don't want to blame anybody. We want to say, how can we bridge the gap?
How would you tell a teacher, or I'm gonna say instruct a teacher on how to reach a child when teachers have to follow daily guidelines and meet deadlines and, test scores, all of that?
Well, I really didn't understand the duties of an administrator until I actually got into it. So I understand where teachers are coming from, meeting deadlines, meeting expectations, and looking at it from their lens. So as an administrator, I try to be first, like I said, I tell them as teachers, it's important for you to love what you do before you come here. It's important for us to understand your well-being before you come here. Because I want you to be at 100 when you come in front of students. So, and I always tell them, imagine that being your student, or imagine that being your child, And for those that don't have children, I always tell them, you have nephews, you have nieces, cousins, godchildren, somebody that's important to you that is young, that's a child, that I want you to understand where the students that are sitting in front of you are coming from. So we never know, like I said, what they have experienced prior to coming into the classrooms. I show a lot of videos during staff meetings of situations in other urban cities to try to get them to understand how important it is to meet the child where they are. There was a very important, I'm not sure she's still a principal now, but I always show 2 TED Talk videos, and they have been instrumental in my duty as an administrator and for teachers to understand where kids are coming from. There was I have to get her name, I have to look up her name, but there's one teacher that was from Strawberry Mansion High School, and I think that was in Philadelphia. And if you look at her video and you start feeling it. So once the teachers see that video, and there's another one from a lady, I'm gonna get you all the names of these people so you can play those videos, that she talked about her students were a lot of time failures in school, and they came with a lot of background that, that would put a child behind if, they were faced with those type of circumstances and situations, but she always did something to motivate them. So once our staff looks at those videos and they see our kids and where they're coming from, they're normally more in tune with the situations. And I always ask them to build rapport.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to stop it here to say that I want to point out something else that she said is motivation. Kids, youth, they want to be motivated. And that's another point that we come in at as advocates, and that we care. Let's motivate them. Okay, we want you to come out, but what are we doing to get you to come out? How are we drawing you closer? How am I a parent to you? Like, okay, Miss Bracey seems like a fun lady, because some of the kids think I'm older, but a lot of them think I'm a teenager too. So, it goes back and forth, but they still like, what, Miss Bracey is fun. When I sit down with them, I'm always transparent about who I am. And kids are looking for that too. Transparency, when kids meet you and you have a nice car, a nice house, you dress nice, they're like, well, what does she have to say to me? And it's like, I have a lot to say. Let me get on your level. So motivation is important for our youth.
Relationship not only with the student but with the parent.
Yes, and that is so important. Parents and guardians are very important. Most children that I've worked with, though, they're not at home with their parents. Grandma raised them, godmom, or auntie, or somebody like that. But also, some parents or guardians instruct their child to be evasive and not to ask questions. And it's just like, what if the teacher did reach out? What if the child was in a mentoring program and they just refused to talk? What would what would be the next step, like for that child or that teacher for us to just step in as a community to just break down the quietness of the child.
So I've had instances like that with students, and it takes years to master how to, to reach children. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight. So my advice for novice teachers are to get the counselor, administrator involved, or a lot of times we put novice teachers with veteran teachers who know how to, reach out to students. So we always tell them to get involved with somebody that they trust and can also be a guide to show them how to do that. Because like I said, it's not something you just pick up on unless you've had some background with working with students before, or children before. But my thing is, I don't talk at children. I talk to them. So that's number one. And I remember when I first started out, someone always told me, one of my mentors told me, always get the roughest child in your class. Once you get that person, you don't have to worry about anything else. So I don't like to toot my own horn, but I do have a way with kids. They call me the child whisperer because for some reason or another, they do always tend to come and tell me things that, that they probably wouldn't tell anyone else. But like I said, talking to children, like having them come sit down, like it's not important. It is important for them to be in class. Now, I want them to get their academics. I want them to be able to excel in school. But if I see somebody struggling and they're quiet, so I'll have them come in my office. And I did this as a teacher. I keep them during, recess, have them eat lunch with me, and just talk to them and say, hey, and then I'll tell them my own experiences. Because what we have to understand is a lot of times if we're able to relate, or even give them some experiences, whether they happen with you or a family member or a friend, they tend to listen to that more so because they feel like you've been there. And it might not happen that same day. I had an instance where a child approached me maybe 2 days later and said, hey, Ms. Clark, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, sure. So it takes some time because they want to know that you care, for number one. That's the biggest factor, is making sure that they understand that you care. But it takes a special person to be able to get children to talk. It's an art, it's a science. I always say you have to use the experiment, like the what they call how you have to use your hypothesis. You have to kind of keep playing with it and make sure that it's going to work. But it is always important if you see a child struggling and you see a quiet child, it's a reason why that child is quiet. They're not just quiet because they, it's maybe a bad day. If a child has been quiet, they're not talking to friends, they're not talking to their peers, they don't talk to teachers, something's going on.
Yes, so I want to pause there to say that basically she just recapped on what I said about just being relatable and caring, and also the roughest child and the quietest child are the two children that we will say, hey, maybe we should let's see what's going on with them. Like I have a girl in my group right now, she is very quiet, but when we did a practice on Wednesday about what do you want to work on, her paper was the longest, but in group she does not talk as much, but she wrote down what she wanted to work on, and it was like my attitude, and like she put on there, I have it right here too, because it's funny what she put. She said ignoring people, children, and that basically means like not to slap somebody, but instead of saying like ignoring people my age, it's like ignoring people, children, because that child, that person belongs to somebody else. Like that's somebody else's child. So I don't want to hurt nobody. That's basically what she's saying. But it's funny because it takes time being around them to understand their language. It's like, okay, I get what you're saying. And she also put that she have anxiety. And she is 14 years old. So, really getting that child to talk will increase breaking down the traumatic events in her life. She's able to write it, but now we need to talk about it so that we can address what's really going on. And what I'm going to do for her though, is I'm going to buy her a journal so she can journal. And then that way I can communicate through her like that, because that will allow me to build up her trust. Like, I can build my trust with her that way. She writes it down and then we speak on it. And then when she realizes that I'm somebody that she can talk to, we can transition to talking. And that's how, you build a relationship. But like Ms. Clark was saying, it just takes time, and you have to be willing to put the time in. Why keep starting over?
Food drive or clothes, teach them, in my class during that time. But if you build relationships with whoever, whether it's a parent, the grandparent, the aunt, whoever is taking, guardianship or responsibility for a student, it's very important to understand them and to know what's going on so you can help the child. So that's the most important thing. I think for anybody that is an educator, that their goal is to ensure that students become productive citizens, their number one goal is to educate, not to suspend.
That's right. And so how important do you think community partners would be in the school? Because I know right now during COVID, a lot of schools lost community partners because they couldn't come to the school, And so is that something that you think should be picked back up? And if community partners do come back, how could that benefit you all for the low income community, the high absentees, because they might not have, the materials to do virtual stuff. And really, honestly, you might not be able to reach them virtually. I mean, every child, if their environment is already too a lot, then, how could virtual mentorship or food drive or clothes or, how could that help them virtually?
In my day and age, the community, I mean, you could be outside if you doing something you weren't supposed to, with somebody in the community saw it, you get in trouble with them, and then you get in trouble with with your parents. So community is very important. Right. And I think that's what we have lost. Mm-hmm. We have lost that community engagement piece. We have lost the responsibilities of, just being neighborly, good neighbors. And I think if we could ever get that back, a lot of things would change with what's going on in schools and communities in general. If we could just get that piece back, or that component back, or how to change that narrative, I don't know how to do that. But I think the only way for schools to be effective, or for us to be productive academically, socially, emotionally, is to get back to that community engagement piece. Like, it's essential, because a lot of times if we at school, we have things going on in schools that we just don't know who to talk to, because that community piece is not there. Right. And if we are able to do that, it's so much that can be accomplished, for students, whether it's, like I said, academic, social, emotional. It is so much that could be accomplished if we have those community stakeholders involved with the students and the teachers, whoever, so much could be accomplished if we were able to do that again. I know we have to consider the safety of it right now with COVID. But it seems that, they are lightening up on protocols and restrictions. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we will get that piece back. But I just think more community initiatives need to happen for our schools to get to where they need to be. I don't know, town hall meetings, volunteers, community outreach programs, whatever to get that piece or that component back into schools. I think it would be a definite benefit for everybody if that happens again.
Okay. I didn't mean to skip it, but yes. So basically what Ms. Clark was saying is the community is needed. It's just that we need to rebuild it. A lot of nonprofits and businesses did crash during COVID. And so, our goal now is to Agape Life goal, I know it's you all's goal as well, is to just rebuild our communities back up and work with one another so that we can just bridge that gap. And then also making it okay to talk to our youth outside. Like she said, she grew up in a day and time where it's like, excuse me, what are y'all doing? Now it can be combative, but that just comes from like lack of community. I've been where I live at now. I've been here since 2017, and when I see the kids doing something, I can talk to them. I've been here for a long time. I know their parents. I talk to their parents. When I do my food drive, I make sure they eat. We need to get back to that, and then reaching out to the school and saying, "Hey, can we come do this?" and building the trust back up, because a lot of schools don't do nothing right now too, which is because of COVID. But like she said, things are, picking back up. Do y'all have any questions about the video? I can send it out so you can see, because it's like a 30-minute video. And she said some other great things in there, but it's kind of long. Any questions? Okay, that's good. So what is social and emotional learning? A lot of people don't know about this and do know about this. And also a lot of people think it's not important, but it is. So social and emotional learning is the process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life success. This can cover a lot of stuff. Self-awareness and self-control in itself can come down to me talking about how to work on your anxiety, how to work on asking a question, how to work on your anger issues, how to be self-aware when you are upset, when you feel uncomfortable. How can I teach you how to use your voice? How can I teach you how to not be intimidated, right? Because if I get a child that has been sexually abused or physically abused, they are shy and they are scared. But my job is to break down that barrier and talk to you about who to tell when that happens to me. It's okay to tell. I don't have to be quiet. I don't have to walk around with this trauma for 20 more years, and now I'm 28 and I haven't addressed the physical or the sexual abuse I went through. Self-control, you can cover a lot with that. Self-control is basically like, instead of me acting out in class, right? Because a lot of our younger kids act out in class instead of asking questions. If they don't understand, they will just act up. But really, they just don't understand. So they just, but they'll not ask questions because their mom or their guardian might say, be quiet, shut up, sit down, I'm busy. So they're not asking questions, is not normalized. So that's neglect, right? So, but that causes them to build up a defense mechanism to say, I'm not going to ask, I'm just going to act up, which is what they do at home. Most kids at home, when they don't get their way, they act up. So they just bring that behavior to school. And so that's how deep trauma can go. People with strong social and emotional skills are better able to cope with everyday challenges and benefit academically, professionally, and socially. This is very true. We have been doing this, and I still work with my girls from my other school, and they are better girls all around. Like, I literally had a girl write me a letter, and she like, Miss Bracey, thank you so much for teaching me to just talk. Right now we're social. Everything is like, my face is in my phone. I could talk through text, and that's still not effective. So I'm really teaching these kids it's okay to talk. You don't have to act out. You can just use your voice or tell the proper person. Okay, before we go on to trauma in the juvenile justice system, does anybody have any questions or any feedback about the educational system or what can be better or what you have experienced? Okay. No questions, we can keep going. Trauma in the juvenile justice. The majority of youth involved with the juvenile justice system have experienced traumatic events. It's just that simple. My first thing I've ever done when I got into my older ages was work with CASA. So I actually worked with the juvenile justice system. CASA was very difficult to work with because I was the child advocate, but really when I was advocating for the child, it really didn't matter. Every program was for parents. Of course, we did Babies Can't Wait, which is an evaluation that we do on babies to make sure they haven't been sexually abused or physically abused. And then you introduce play therapy with them to see how they play, to understand, well, this is what was going on in their home, which is good. But then Babies Can't Wait it's a wait list for that. And then the resources are limited because there's so many children on there. And then they do counseling for the kids, but how could you keep that up if they're in foster care and they're going from home to home? So it was hard working with them because I couldn't really make a difference. And really, they did everything for the parent to get their child back. That's really what it's about in the juvenile justice system. And then we had the kids that got in trouble that was on our caseload that was actually in juvenile. Or they parents, like, parents can call and put their kids in defects or put them in juvenile. So we had a lot of that as well, but it's no programs for the youth. And literally, it's just traumatic events. This is why they're here now. I'm getting passionate about this too. Okay, because this is great. So continuing on in that is recognizing that childhood trauma may be at the heart of the status offense or public offense is essential to ensuring the child receives proper treatment. Okay, when the judge sees this child that robbed these people's house, which punishment should be given, but understand where he or she came from. Why are they here now? And what's in place for the parent? You punishing me, but you don't even know, maybe my mama taught me how to do this. Maybe it was okay for me. Some parents do know that their children sell drugs, rob, and they say it's okay. But now I'm in trouble, but I don't know any better. So getting to know their childhood traumas and how they grew up is going to be important in this timeline here by the time they get to their teenage years. I'm gonna say this because I think this is good too. In the trauma-forced court, all players are educated on the effects of trauma and view the child's behavior in the case itself through this lens. This is true, they should be, but right now during the pandemic, so many kids have gotten into trouble. It's literally like, okay, what we gonna do? Let's move them out. Let's move them on. It's not, I can't focus on your traumas because my caseload is so big. So yes. Now let's just go backwards. So I'm gonna open the floor to like, what should punishment be based on when it comes to our juvenile? Like, how do we feel about that?
Well, I'm gonna chime in, Tiara, just on behalf of the work that ICM is currently focusing on. One of the priority advocacy efforts we're working on now is supporting House Bill 272, which is raise the age, and it clearly ties into the notion that we need to understand children and the ramifications of trauma, because the idea with HB 272 is expanding juvenile jurisdiction to include 17-year-olds. Because right now, Georgia is one of 3 states in the nation that still prosecutes all 17-year-olds as adults for all crimes. And what we are supporters of 272 basically would like, the consideration that children should be treated as children rather than, already relegating them to the adult system for behaviors and manifestations of trauma. So I think that we need to understand why children create the crimes that they do. And it's unfortunate that Georgia still prosecutes 17-year-olds as adults and put them in adult prisons for things perhaps they may not have known, that there was a better way to act upon a certain situation. So I think that, understanding how trauma impacts and builds upon each experience to ultimately cause the behavior that, that puts them in the adult penal system. But hopefully we can pass 272 and at least give 17-year-olds the ability to still be children under the juvenile jurisdiction setting. So I just wanted to put it out there. What should punishment be based on? I think we need to look at children being children first and providing the services that they need rather than, providing a system where, just lock them up, just lock everybody up. It's not working, and it's not benefiting the children we're supposed to serve.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also want to say, like, if I can't buy anything until I'm 18, I can't do nothing until I'm 18. Why stay at 17? I can go to jail, like, because jail is a whole different ball game from juvenile. I've been in the jail before, and I've been in juvenile before. Not like physically, like I never got in trouble. Oh my God, no. I got anxiety. I can't be putting back in no police car, y'all. So, and if somebody tell me what to do, I don't think that'll go well for me. But I've been in both places, like, to volunteer, and jail is rough. Juvenile is like, okay, it's rough too, but why put my mind there when it doesn't need to be, when I'm not even an adult yet? And so you're forcing me to do something and it's not fair. And so
I have a question.
Yes.
So based on what you're saying and what the other lady said, like, that's Priscilla. Here in DC, we are seeing a spike in crimes from juveniles that are often ending in murder, a lot of carjacking. And while I agree that putting them in an adult facility is not where they should be, how do we address their behavior, taking their traumas into consideration, but teaching them that their behavior is unacceptable? Because what DC has been doing is letting them go, and then they escalate. Like, maybe the first time was a carjacking, and then the second or third time it resulted in a murder. So I'm looking for ways to address their trauma, but then set them on a different path so that their behavior isn't perceived by them as okay, because we understand that they're developing, so they may not know right from wrong, but then their behavior escalates to then affect others.
Okay. So
Great.
I wish
Yeah.
this is what that's great feedback, because that is true. We get a lot of people that are they get upset when we defend, and it's like, this is what needs to happen. Like, the girls in our group and the boys that we have in our group, we have a program for them. They can learn how to cut hair, they can learn how to do makeup, they can learn how to braid hair, and they can learn how to pressure wash for free. We have to connect people, connect our youth to jobs so that they can start working, and then also connect them, then doing a mentorship program with them as well. But see, when they get in trouble, it's no resources for them. So they let them go, but they didn't connect them to a resource. They didn't connect them to a program. And so that's what the juvenile system needs, is they need programs to connect them to, so that we can bring the rate down. Because a lot of them just need the trauma to be addressed, you know, and their voice to be heard and to get on the right path, but there's no connection there. So I would say start with, who do we need to talk to say, this is what we have in place, send them over to me. Let's do a contract. Let's contract me out so I can do the work, type thing, you know, because that's really what we need.
So I'm currently counseling. Like I said, I was an educator for over 12 years, and I'm moving into administration. So this is probably why I have a lot of these questions. However, I am currently counseling young men in foster care who all come to us with traumas. And DC has a lot of programs and spends a lot of money on just the type of thing you're talking about, but we're challenged in getting them to follow through with the program. Like, we connect them with mentors, we connect them with job opportunities, we connect them with mentorship. I mean, when I say DC is investing a lot of money, but we can't get these young men to follow through. They just want to get high and joyride in other people's cars. And so I find myself looking for other ways to try to reach them, because even I was trying to help a young man just the other day with a job, a summer youth employment job, and all he wants is money. He doesn't want to actually work for the money. He just wants to show up and get money. And I'm just looking for, I guess, some kind of way to, because I believe they can change. They're so young. They're still at the beginning of their lives, but they don't seem to want to do anything that could put them on a better path.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we deal with that a lot. And it's just sometimes we get a batch where they're not ready. And when I need to share Miss Kimberly Clark's the interview, because at the end of the interview she was crying because she was saying she had that group where she thought they wouldn't go to college, she thought they wouldn't make it, and then they reached back and they in college now and they do this and then they would do that. And it's just like, sometimes we have those kids we just can plant seeds with, and it might not grow. And then sometimes we can plant seeds and we can see the growth immediately. But we always try to do like incentives with the boys, and also get the men involved too. Luckily for me here in Georgia with my program, we have a man that's over the man side of the program. So when they talk to him, they understand him. But when they talking to me, it's like, Miss Bracey, you don't know what you're talking about, you know. And I get that a lot from my boys. They always challenging me, and I'm like, listen, you talking about Lil Baby, these are rappers, Lil Baby and Gunna, and how you think they got to where they got to? They might have a lot of money, but they work. They go to the studio every day. They drive their car. Like, they worked. And do you know where they were at before? So I always try to like be relatable as possible to let them know that. And we also do a lot of vision boards too, because a lot of them say they want money and cars. And I'm like, well, how you gonna get it? Because what do you think? You think you can steal a car and live a good life? You're not gonna go nowhere far with that car. So I always, remind them that as well too. But just planting the seeds and like being patient. And I know sometimes our work gets weary and it hurts, but it's just like, it's just a day-to-day process with the boys, especially with the fellas, okay? Because they just see different things right now.
Yeah, let me chime in. I'm going to have to give two clarifications for Ms. Moore with regard to 272. There is a law in Georgia now which will automatically put children in adult prison depending on the crimes they commit. It's called the 7 deadly sins, and among them is like rape, murder, and things of that nature. So if you have youth who commit these crimes, they will automatically be put in adult prison. And unfortunately, they can be as young as 13-year-olds going to adult prison for these 7 deadly sins. So those type of crimes will be outside the scope of HB 272. And with regards to what can we do, you know, for a lot of us who do volunteer work with child issues and child focused programs, I think there are so many people doing things, but they're not doing things together to maximize the outcome for children. For example, in the situation where you have mentors and things like that for youth, well, how do we get everybody together on the same page who are servicing the kids? How do we get the school? How do we get the parents? How do we get the community? How do we get the churches all together on the same scope so we don't lose another child? Everybody's doing things individually, but nobody's doing things together to meet the needs of the children. Because so often, and we say it here a lot of times, how do we bridge the gap? Sometimes the bridging of the gap is that we all work together. We all work together, especially if we know we have one child who's in a particular school system. You know, who are the parents, who are the grandparents? And if they're already in the system, you know who they are. It's just a matter of reaching out to them and having a family counseling session. But I think, you know, we invest in the children, but we all don't do the work together to maximize the impact for children. I think that's a disconnect that a lot of people see, but like, I don't know how that's going to happen, because that's a lot of work and a lot of money that needs to take place. And you know, and we have to maybe that's something somebody can come with down the road. How do we get everybody together so we have a plan so another child does not fall through the cracks? Because someone's going to be accountable. Because if there's court-ordered mentoring, there's court-ordered parenting classes, somebody needs to be monitoring that. And if it doesn't happen, there's a consequence to that. And if children, if we're going to lose them, you know, and there needs to be something put in place, you know, either you go to school every day and come to the counseling session, there needs to be a consequence. You don't do that, guess what? Something's going to happen, because there needs to be a time when all of us need to have that conversation. What happens when the child doesn't do this? What is the next step? So I'm just going to put it out there.
And I totally agree. And incentives is important. You know, like Ms. Borda said, if you come to school 5 days straight and you go to your mentoring sessions, we will reward you. Parents, providing resources for parents at the school. That's what we do. We don't even try to get them to go nowhere else. We go, hey, come to the school on Saturday, or when you pick up your child, meet us in the gym. Let's have a family game night. Bringing the resources to them is important as well too. Asking them to go somewhere else probably won't work. And then getting everybody on the same page, I totally agree with. And in a nonprofit world, it's kind of like a lot of nonprofits don't understand that too. It's like, well, I can do this on my own. And really, you cannot. Working in a nonprofit world, you cannot reach people by yourself, because it's so much to do. And our job is to stay connected to each other and work with each other. Let me come to your event and volunteer. Let me provide a service for you, you know. So collaboration is definitely true.
Yeah. But a lot of times in nonprofits, they are, especially service-driven ones, they are so busy providing the service. They know that a lot of them, I suspect, know the collaboration is important with other groups and organizations, but they're too busy doing what they do to have somebody to help them do the collaboration or help with, you know, as Priscilla says, it takes a lot of time and effort to get that collaboration going. And, you know, maybe that's where, Priscilla, we need not ICM, but there needs to be a grant somewhere that can help in some area, you know, help that collaboration happen.
Yes, grants for sure. That is the it's the grants that helps out a lot when you
Yeah.
have a sponsorship or a grant involved to help you work with others. And because there's a lot of people out here that wants to give too. And so I'm glad that, we dived into this, because this is where a lot of people are having their problems at too, is how can I make an impact, and who should I talk to? Because sometimes you talk to people and they don't want to share their resources. And it's just like, it's enough people who has given food, shelter to us for us to share it. I don't keep any information to myself. If I can help somebody out, another nonprofit, that's what I do, because I know how it is starting off, and I know how it is when you really want to work and you just want your voice to be heard for whatever you do. So that was great. Thank you all so much. So we really
can I ask just one quick question? Does this end is supposed to end at 11:30 or later? Because
we had it from 10 to 12, but it's gonna be before 12. It might not be 11:30 because we have one more piece left, and then we'll be done.
Okay, so I'll hang in here.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So we basically just talked about all of this right here, which is better matching the youth. What is our approach? Better matching the youth with trauma services, offer trauma-informed services, which includes routine screening for all youth. They screen parents for drugs and mental health issues when they come into the court system to get their child back. They should do the same for the youth too, because we don't know what they're facing if we didn't do a screening. And then if we don't follow up on that screening, how can we continue to provide the service? And so we just talked about this, and maybe we can just get some work done in that coming very soon with the age, and then saying, well, they provide a service. We provide direct service. So let's work with Agape Life. Let's, and Miss Judy as well. Let's work with her as well. Although she in DC, but still, you never know where God will take you. You might take you to another state or something. So we're gonna keep going. We can play the game in a minute. We're gonna come back to it. Next is trauma and faith. So this is where our church community come in at. It does not matter your religion. Most churches do community outreach, but we just talked about not being weary, and this is where our faith come in at, right? And so we have our clients always. How can we build our clients' faith? This is even down to our children, our parents, our educators, our judges. How can we keep them faithful? Because everybody is working to do something, but they're getting weary. They're asking themselves, why? Why me? It does not matter any role it is, why me? Am I being punished? I keep trying. They don't love me. Am I making a difference? We're literally having these conversations with ourselves. And so what we want to do is, as people of faith and as people, what we're doing in our work, we want to encourage, we want to plant seeds, we want to say, don't blame yourself. I love you. I care about you. And maybe you should take a break. Maybe you should go talk to somebody, just really keeping everybody's faith built up, because everybody has a time in their life where their faith is tried and you don't know what to do. My daughter was abused at daycare in November. I'm a child advocate and it happened to me. And I was just like, my faith was being real tested, because I'm just like, what should I do? And I had to advocate for my daughter, and I had to watch the video over and over again of this lady dragging her and throwing her to the ground, and so it's just like, but I had people in my corner saying to me, Tiara, it's okay, well, let's do this, because some days I would just cry, because I'm like, this is my child. And so we have those days where we just don't know. And so we just want to encourage everybody. Many survivors who have faith in God prior to their abusive or sexual trauma may find their faith shaken. A lot of people ask, does God exist? Why did he let this happen to me? Just all the questions. And when we're out there doing the work, it does not matter your religion. Faith is a universal language. Hope is a universal language for everybody. And so what can we do? We can actively listen to them. I hear you. Yes, I understand. You know, I'm not talking back. I'm not giving advice. I'm just listening. Then how can I advocate for you? What do I need to do? Who I need to talk to? And then pray. Prayer is a universal language. Everybody prays. How can I pray for you today? What is it? Do you believe in God? Where's your faith at? I mean, me and my girls, we talk about it. Some of my girls ask to pray, and I pray with them because, you know, it is nothing to me. You know, I'm gonna do what you ask me to do. Maybe some of our kids have relationships with God, but their parents don't go, you know, don't go to church or whatever the case may be. But God instills that relationship in us already at birth, or, you know, we have an encounter with God at 5, at 6, at 7, at 8. And so I know who he is, but my parent don't teach me about him, but I want to pray. So just doing these 3 things helps out a lot. And then you carry this with you wherever you go. Listen, advocate, pray. And that's just it. And then how can we make a difference? How can you make a difference with Agape Life Prevention Center? Become a stakeholder or partner. Volunteer with us. Every third Saturday of the month, we're at the library on Pryor Road, and I offer free dancing classes and resources to that community over there. We do like diapers and wipes, clothes, shoes, dance, food, all of that is over there. And then every third Wednesday of the month, we go to a community, a low-income community, apartment complex, and we provide food, diapers, wipes. A lot of the kids, they get off the bus and we have snacks for them, and they are running. And then we handed out blessing boxes as well. And then parents come down there and they ask for prayer and they ask for guidance. And they want to get a lot of our kids too that we work with, they're not in school. So they want to know how to get their kids back in school. And then that's where I come in now. And I have a partner that I work with where she works with the parents, because I'm not gonna lie, parents are not my strong suit. You know, I be like, oh my God. The mental health for parents is way different from mental health for children. You can reach kids better, but adults, they've been in their trauma for so long, it's hard to reach them. And so, you know, that's just not my weakness. That's not my strength. I work with the kids only. Donate or purchase something off our wish list. Participate in our Love Gala. We have a Love Gala coming up for children between the ages of 5 and 15. This gala is for them to come and be empowered. They're going to dress up. They're going to come dressed up. We're going to have music and games, scholarships. And we're only inviting foster youth, abused and abused and neglected children. Children that's in our mentoring program. We're going to be reaching out to MACC. I don't know if you ever heard of them. MAAC. You know, we work with them as well. I was at their empowerment, and I was a guest speaker there. So we talked to a lot of their foster parents, and we're inviting them to come, because a lot of them don't get to go to nice things. They don't know what it's like to dress up, have etiquette, and be appreciated. I appreciate you. That's what this Love Gala is for. I appreciate you. I love you. I know you're going through certain things, but this is for you. You can always refer us to a school to work with, so we can be a community partner, and then spread the word about this class so we can educate others on what children in trauma. So that's how you can make a difference with us by just doing these simple things here. And any questions, comments, or concerns? We answered this. The most common child abuse is neglect. What do you know about the kids in your community? What do you think about the major causes of child abuse? What will you do to see the rate of abuse go down in your community? And we talked about all these things earlier. And so collaborations, partnerships, demographics, where should we go next? And just getting those, children involved.
This was great. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Because I think this was the arch of the program pretty much takes us to, it takes all of us to do this work. It doesn't matter where you are. There's a way to serve children, and there's so much work to be done. There's still so much work to be done. And I just want to strengthen it. It's, it's going to take all of us. And when we do provide training for youth, one of the things we always tell them is your voice is powerful, but at the same time, when you do advocacy work, we always know that sometimes the results are not immediate. Most of the times they're not immediate, and don't lose or faith or hope in that. Whatever little thing that you can do, you're a step closer to where you want to be. So, to all of people who are doing work on behalf of children, stay with it. Sometimes it takes it's a long journey, and it can be work that touches your heart, but still you need to stay with it because the outcome is so much worth it. So, if anybody has any questions or comment, this is the time to do so. So I want to be appreciative of everybody's time. And I will have, Tiara will provide me a copy of this presentation. I'll make sure that everybody here will get it, as well as this is the recording. We will make sure that it's provided as well. I'll get everybody a link so they'll get that too. So if anybody has any questions or comments, this is time to do so, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. I often get, I guess, a little exhausted with the things that I fight against. And this was refreshing to know that the work is being done nationwide, although you do know it, but you don't know it. Mm-hmm. And I will like to say this has been one of the most informative presentations that I've sat through in a number of years. I'm forced to sit through them at work all the time, but they're not really saying anything. So I thank you for this presentation. I took some notes that I will take back with me and hope that I can shift my thinking as I move forward to assist our young people here in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, if I can offer this thought or idea, I'm here in Atlanta, of course. In 1990, I've known Priscilla for a long time. My church adopted the elementary school in what's called the Old Fourth Ward, where Martin Luther King lived, and we said, as a whole entire congregation got together, we all voted on it and said, what we want to do is be a partner in education with Hope Elementary School. And we went down and bead volunteers in the classroom, taking kids out and doing special, training for them, or giving them special help in school. We had a birthday card club for all of the people in the congregation who couldn't go down there and be volunteers, but every child got a birthday card on their birthday. And, we started a math club, and we finally got to see that we couldn't do it by ourselves. So we went out to the churches around that school and got 6 or 7 of them together saying, come in and be volunteers and help us and do that. Out of that came a Saturday school at Big Bethel church in the neighborhood, so that we didn't just have it. We put lots of effort into an after-school program that already existed, but it needed more volunteers. And, there's if you can, it's a very local thing. It's a community-oriented thing, but using and working with faith communities in neighborhoods can be really, really impactful. And, and it was a direct service project, but at the same time, the thing that it did was engage every single person who was a volunteer. They got to know, not just in their head, but in their heart, in their gut, what kids face and the trauma that they face. So, that might be a start at some point. And I wanted to say to you, Tiara, oh my goodness, what an amazing young woman you are, and what a heart you have for children. And I think we ought to nominate her next year for the Marion Wright Edelman Award at our gala. I'm going to remember that. So thank you, Tiara. You warm my heart.
Yes. I think with the four of us are a spectrum of experiences, and I think we do good work, and it's just staying there for the long haul, because the children are worth it.
That's
So
right. That's
yeah.
right.
So Judy, we thank you from DC, and you'll get some communication from me with some resources that will hopefully aid you in your continued work on behalf of children. Tiara, once again, we've been back and forth on emails and phone calls for a couple of months now, and thank you for doing this, because this recording, although we didn't get a lot of people, this recording will be valuable for our members and networks, so they will get the ability to view this and get some valuable information as well. Joy, thank you for joining us as the chair of ICM. So thank you, everybody, for sharing this valuable time with us on Saturdays, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. And thank y'all for your
Thank
time.
you.
Y'all have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.